It's Friday, May 17th, 2024. Well, my fault. I had been recording nothing this and then stopped it.
No blame has to be laid here.
No,
I was just asking if we were actually recording this time.
No, we are. We were sort of recording the first time. I just stopped it for a second. But we started over to get this clean because I accidentally apparently tapped the button twice. So anyway, now that we are recording normally, I'll say it like that because we were recording before. It was just not correct. Now that we are correctly recording, I will start off with our usual promotional segment.
Yeah, promotional. Yeah.
Promotional, which is thankfully very brief now for anybody jumping on new. If you haven't been around in a while, you might remember that the promotion segment used to go on for a bit, but now it's very simple. If you'd like to support our show, it's easy. Just go to supportourshow.com, and that's all you have to do. And the only thing that's not there is, as far as I'm aware, typing in 5 letters, Ozone, will get you 2 months free on Libsyn, unless something has changed and I haven't been informed. Thus ends the promotional segment. Question for you. I doubt you know anything about this.
Yeah.
Because you're not as connected to stuff as I am, but you may have seen something. You're aware.
You and I are plugged into very different streams of information.
Yeah, but I doubt you. Okay, well, this I think you know. There was a new iPad released, right? You know about that.
Yeah. Is this about the ad?
Oh, yeah, so you know about the ad. Okay. Had you seen the ad before you started reading all of this?
No, I didn't even give 2 shits.
Okay, well, it's interesting. So have you watched it at all?
No.
All right, I'm going to say watch it because I'm curious on your thoughts on this because I did
see that a lot of people got pissed off.
Okay, well, I did and I have to cover this because I did a teaser in my 5 about it where I said I'm going to talk more about this on Friday. Because,
all right, so send it to me. I'll watch their advertisement for you.
Well, it is interesting because I don't think the uproar is the interesting part of it. As usual, that is not the thing that fascinates me about it. But here, I will send this to you. So here's the article. And the actual ad is, did they have to remove the link? Did Apple make them remove the link? Oh, well, okay. They changed it. Now it has Apple's YouTube channel, so you have to click it and go to it. It was embedded. So that's interesting. I bet they got a note from Apple saying, take that out. So as Lando watches the ad, I will recap.
Wait, hold on. So can I get to the ad off of this?
Yeah, see where it says Apple's iPad.
I see, yeah. All right, hold on. Right. All right, yep, go ahead.
Okay, so as Lando watches this, there was an iPad event last week in the last couple weeks. I don't remember what the timing was. Anyway, very recently, Apple released new iPads and a new Apple Pencil. And the big thing is that it's an OLED and that it's exceptionally thin. And they released an ad. Well, it wasn't even really an event. It was a video, and there was a video within the video, which is great because now it's getting so meta, it's crazy. But there was a video within the video where Apple did an ad to demonstrate the thinness of the iPad. This is the fascinating part. And the ad, which of course I'll link, and it was linked in the 5, it shows this big hydraulic press. It starts off, and there's all these elements of creative expression in between it. There's a sculpture of a head. There's a metronome. There's paint. There's a video game cabinet. All this different stuff. And so this press starts coming down. And it starts destroying everything in between, as a press does. Just two big flat pieces of metal.
So what's the shit here?
Okay, so, I'm explaining it because people may not have seen this. So basically, it gets to the end, and it splatters everything, and then it opens up, and inside there's an iPad. And then you see a hand, and correct me, Lando, you just watched in case I'm
It's the thinnest iPad ever!
Right, that's what it says, right? So it's pointing out, and it is, by all accounts, it is exceptionally thin, and, so the hand holds it up, and then it says, it's the thinnest iPad ever, and then the ad cuts, right?
You know what? I'm just going to throw this out there.
Sure.
My first laptop was a Fujitsu Monte Carlo. That thing was a little brick. And you know what? I love that little brick. I kind of miss that little brick. There are days where I wish that things were slightly more bricky.
Oh no, I wish that all the time. So no, that's
right.
not it.
Oh, so it's not a weird thing. Okay.
No, that's not unusual at all. I actually do not like something like this being this thin, especially if you're going to be spending north of $2,000 on it.
You spend a ton of money on these things, right? And they're like, oh my God, they're so thin. It's like, yeah, but when I got my cell phone, I looked at it and I thought, this is too fucking thin. I'm going to bend this. And I had to put a big aluminum case on it because I didn't trust, if this is it's one thing for a laptop to be thin. A laptop, by and large, goes into a case, sits on a table. You're not using this thing as a Frisbee, right? But you are nervous when you put it in your luggage or something like that.
Sure.
But a phone goes in your pocket. You carry it around, you throw it around. I mean, watching my wife use her phone. Jesus, my wife is the stress test for an iPhone. She throws that thing into her purse. With
lots of people do that stuff. A lot of them.
Man, woo! But it's like these are devices that get thrown around. Now, I don't know if they do this on purpose, where they basically make it as breakable as they do, so they can be like, look how awesome and delicate it is. Oh, you broke it? Buy another one. Like, is that the kind of impetus behind this? Because otherwise, at some point it's so thin, it's actually a danger.
I don't understand why Apple still pursues this. I have not seen any explanation. It makes no sense other than saying, hey, we can do it, which I guess is a reason, but it's not a good reason.
If you tell me that it's the lightest... So here's the thing.
Well, it is the lightest iPad.
No, but hold on. The lightest versus the thinnest are two different things. Because there's plenty of older people that I know who use iPads, and they are very happy to have a lighter iPad to hold.
Yeah, no,
right?
the weight being shaved down I have no issue with either. It's the thinness of it that makes no sense.
But the thinness gets to a point where nobody can actually keep a handhold on it. Because it's so thin, it almost puts an undue stress because you're trying to hold this thin piece of shit,
Yeah.
Like honestly, I think we're in the uncanny valley where it's like it's either going to be paper thin or it's going to be a brick, but we're in this middle ground where it's getting obnoxious.
Yes. So the ad came out or was played, and immediately people got very upset because they perceived it as indicating that Apple was crushing creative tools and all the rest of it to make a thin thing, right? I don't care about that. That's garbage. It's nonsense. People getting angry over nothing.
Yeah, because their whole statement was the idea. They're trying to draw the metaphor. Hey, you can do all these things on an iPad. Okay. Also, there have been people...
Stop.
Yeah.
Because now you're getting to what to me is the interesting part is how bad of an advertisement this is.
Okay.
Because it tries to have two messages and fails at both. That's the thing where people are getting upset. Who can, whatever. Number one, Apple doesn't care about you, so get over it. But the fact is, why they would make this ad seems driven to anger people, and it's further evidence to me that Apple has lost their ability to market. This is a baffling ad to me in just its messaging, because here's the way, and I thought about this, I was like, there's such an easy way that they could have made virtually the same ad. They wouldn't have had to change anything and add one thing at the end, and all this would have been nothing. They could have avoided this. And if I can think of this, and they didn't, it tells me something. So same ad, change nothing, right? Until the press opens up. There's the iPad still sitting there. Hand comes into frame, picks it up, and has it facing you. As opposed to the thin part first, it's facing you. It picks it up facing you. On the screen are all the things that it crushed, right?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Turn sideways, and then they all come out of it, and then another hand comes in with the pencil and starts like shading in the sculpture and says all of this in something thinner than whatever, a magazine, a book, whatever.
I mean, that is another angle that you could have gone.
But that solves all of it. It solves it all.
I'm aware. But listen, obviously somebody in the marketing department was watching that YouTube channel that just crushes things with a press. and was like, you know what? People watch this shit. Why don't we just do that? And they were like, yeah, that'd be really neat. We'll just crush that. I mean, man, that was a really big press. You got to admit that thing was gigantic. But
Well,
I mean, the idea, the funny thing about this is that it's what seems stupid to me is the metaphor that they're trying to say, that I think they're trying to say, is like you can do all this. We've crushed all this down into the iPad, right? That's the overall arcing idea. Hey, you can do all these things. We've crushed it all down to the thinnest iPad ever. But what's fascinating to me is the violence of it, which it's not like it's a sweet, like I think they're playing it for comedy, right? But there is a certain level of kind of like violence of destruction. I mean, there's people.
That's what I'm saying. Is the odd part about this ad is that I don't think it succeeds at either of its goals.
Like a lot of people that. So I've seen a few headlines in a few places, right? Like I said, I haven't really read an article about this because I tend to stay out of advertising issues because advertising at the end of the day is mostly evil at this point.
Sure.
Because just having a conversation about it is what the advertising wants. Any attention is attention, and we live in an attention economy. But there are people in the headlines that compared it to. They said it's the opposite of the 1984 commercial that Apple put out.
Yes, I saw that comparison.
And I was like, you know what? I could see that because in this you're basically crushing all creativity and saying, hey, use our thing instead.
Well,
fuck all this other shit.
And that's what I mean about it is the thing that is fascinating is how bad a marketing tool it is for a company that used to be very good at this and has gotten continually worse at it.
Let me give you another version of that ad. You could have had that image of all that stuff there, right? And then just had someone pick it up and realize that you were looking at a screen the whole time. And it brings the idea of, hey guys, all this shit is in here. You don't have to destroy anything.
Right.
It's benign. Like they really wanted to send a message of this shit is destroyed by how awesome our technology is.
Yeah, it's so odd.
But I don't, I also look at these ads and say, you can't blame all of Apple because there's a marketing department. You blame the marketing department.
I don't blame all of Apple, but this is Apple's face to the world.
Yeah,
right? This is what people see. You can say, "Oh, well, the R&D, fuck the R&D department."
You know what?
Nobody outside sees that.
I watched the video for the headset thing that they did, right? Which I think they stopped making that now, right? Didn't they stop selling that?
No. They didn't stop making it. No. Apple was smart with that because what they did was they've only made enough to what they sell. So they basically can say we've sold everyone we've made because
we only made a few. Yeah. So the ad they did for that thing, I thought was pretty good. It had a lot of CG. It was informative. It gave you an idea of what these things, the one that they had like a 6 or 7 minute like video they did telling you about the helmet technology and what it could do and the software and like basically what the hope of it was, right? It was the whole this is what you could do with it and this is what we hope to be able to do with it. It was kind of their it almost felt like a TED conference, but basically it was an ad. It was like a long ad, and I was curious because I didn't know what the fuck this thing was. And I watched that, and I thought, you know what? Like, I don't want one, but at least now I understand what it is, right?
Sure.
And I don't mind those types of ads. Let me know what it is. And you know what? If they did more iPad ads where they specifically point out to you, hey, this is why this one's better. So far,
but they can't. They can't because
it's not that much better.
iPad. No. Well, it's not that. In fact, what's the joke of the iPad the whole time for most people, not me because I don't use it like most people, but for most people,
they don't need it.
Well, sort of. Well, it depends on what you mean by need it, but the iPad itself, the hardware, if you get into especially the higher end, is so overpowered for what iPad OS can do. That everybody has said we don't need better hardware.
The hardware outmatches the software
by far.
Yeah,
and so everybody's been saying you have to improve the OS. It's not the hardware, dummies. It's the software. And they keep just putting faster and faster and more storage. But the thing is, I was listening to commentary by somebody who does a lot of work off various machines, and this individual said The problem with the iPad is I can't count on it because unlike a laptop, because this person has a Mac and an iPad.
Yeah, no, hold on. I get that completely. An iPad is a satellite device, and you cannot trust a satellite device.
Yeah, because there might be a scenario where you have to do something and you don't know that the iPad can do it. Whereas with a Mac, again, because just by the virtue of sideloading or being able to install things off the App Store,
yeah,
if you suddenly need a piece of software that Apple doesn't support, you can get it. You can't do that on the iPad.
Yeah.
You can't do that on the iPhone.
Hey, you know what? Hey, listen, you can still plug a disk drive into your computer. I did it the other day.
Well, that file management is probably one of the biggest complaints about iPad OSs. And a lot of people said, why don't you just let it run Mac OS and make
because I think the problem that they're having is that then it's basically a flat laptop. And if it's a flat if it's a flat laptop, do you really need the laptops?
Well,
do you really need the iPads? I wonder if it's a marketing issue for them. They sit there and they go, well, hold on, how do we, if this is just a laptop, then what's the difference really between these two?
But to your point, and this reinforces my assertion that Apple has lost their ability to know what marketing is. They made those commercials where the little girl was using the iPad and somebody said, oh, is that your computer? And the response was, well, it's a computer. And that was supposed to be clever. But in fact, it was pointing out this very issue, which is they've made something that they market as a computer, even though they won't call it that. They're saying it's equivalent to a laptop.
Computer. It's a computer light.
Well, also the fact it only has one port. And even their
Come
lowest end laptops have two.
even humans have 3 ports. Come on, guys.
No kidding. So but this is my larger point. Is people got upset about the creativity angle, and I'm like, forget that. That's not the interesting thing about this. That's just what's interesting is this is a company that, and I do feel like this is the thing, because a lot of people when Steve Jobs died said, well, what will happen to Apple without him? And again, they focused on, they thought the company would somehow collapse, which was never going to happen.
No, they're going to go, they're going to go the way of Microsoft. They're going to become another just generic computer company out there supplying basic machines. And
the reason for that is because they don't have, and this is what a lot of people don't probably know, is for a while it was Tim Cook and Steve Jobs. And those were the two sides of what made Apple special for a while, which was a logistical person, Tim Cook, who knew how to get things out the door.
A push and pull. Yeah, a push and pull.
Yeah, he knew how to do the business stuff. And Steve Jobs was the vision guy who would go up and give the dynamite performances and would have an idea in his head of this is how people should use it, and most times was right because for all his faults, he did have a pretty good handle on what people needed their computer to do. Not wanted it to do, but needed it to do. And he was able to finesse that into products that were desirable to use. That's a tough thing to do. That was a skill he had that most people don't. And then he didn't worry about the business side because Tim Cook was there to do that for him. And then Jobs died. And then his natural successor, which was Johnny Ive, went off the deep end and went just basically insane, making terrible design decisions, and they didn't have anybody behind him because those aren't people you just pluck off a tree. And so Tim Cook has run this thing by himself essentially, and nobody has been the Jobs or Ive replacement. And without that, where you are.
I don't know if Cook would really want to have. I mean, once you have absolute power, it's hard to share.
Well, that may be. I don't know anything about him personally, beyond what we find out in marketing materials, which is nothing. So you may very well be right. I don't know. I mean, but it does reveal what the difference is now. That is the true loss of Jobs. Not that the company would fold, but
listen,
that
Dell,
vision aspect is missing.
There was a point in time where Dells were fucking everywhere. Dell was the computer that you got. Everybody orders a Dell. Dell.
Let me tell you something. Dell still is everywhere. It's just that nobody says anything about it.
No, I know that, but here's the thing. Dells are everywhere, right?
Yeah.
But they kind of slid into a different market. They aren't necessarily every college kid's laptop anymore. There was a period there where everybody had a Dell. Everybody had a Dell computer in school, like as a personal use computer. Everybody had a laptop. Everybody had a desktop. It's kind of like Gateway. Gateways were fucking everywhere for a while. And then what happens is these companies, they slide off into whatever their niche is. And Dell is like a huge business company now, right?
Yes, that's the thing is that what they did was, I think wisely, Dell realized that the consumer end was going to drop off, and they just stuck with doing enterprise and business, and they've been fine that way.
Yeah, and the thing is that
So-
Dell is not a shiny company. They're not going to make
No.
iPads.
No.
They make basic, hardworking computers. As stylish as they get is their Alienware line, which is for power like gamers, right? Those are still very funny, and they look hilarious. But beyond that, no, you're mostly dealing with and honestly, I don't even see Dells at Best Buy anymore. I still see Alienwares at Best Buy, but not Dells. And I know Dell is around because I always hear good things about them, but they slid off from what they were. And that's what happens with a lot of these companies, is that they just slide off from what their popularity shifts, and they realize the places that they can go where they'll still be effective and make a lot of money. And that is where Apple will go. Apple isn't going to be the shiniest forever. Somebody's going to come up at some point or another. Some company is going to come up with a phone that's sexier than the iPhone. And even if it isn't better than the iPhone, as long as it's sexier, people will use it. Because, I mean, if we've proven anything about humans, we love viral sensations. And a lot of people are susceptible to it.
Well, two things. For Dell,
Yes.
what I think the interesting part about Dell is where most people actually see it is their monitors. See them all over the place. Dell monitors with that big Dell circle on the back. They're everywhere. Because Dell makes excellent monitors that are well calibrated. So you see them in TV and movies all over the place.
I think I do still have a Dell monitor.
No, Dell's monitors are, I would say, their best product. By far, outside of, specialized enterprise stuff. But as far as a basic machine or whatever that a consumer would buy, Dell monitors, by far. I have a Dell monitor. It's
basic,
great.
hardworking machine, yeah.
Yeah, and almost every monitor at my place of work, almost every single one is a Dell monitor. I don't know that I've seen anything outside of maybe a few of the high-end Apples and a couple other ones.
So they survived. Where's Gateway?
Yes. Well,
Is Gateway still around?
That Gateway also was heavy in like local retail. I mean, they got eaten up.
Hey,
but as far as
HP.
Apple,
what is HP up to?
Oh no, HP is still around. Let me tell you something.
I know, but they're mostly doing printers now, aren't they?
Well,
Like,
they've been acquiring a lot of different companies. They own.
Have they? Okay.
They own Poly, the phone manufacturer, like all the conference. They acquired that. They're acquiring stuff. Now, as far as Apple, I think their next thing is going to be when they have the Vision Pro and a pair of Ray-Bans. When they get to that, then that will be their next big thing, because that will be the transformative end of Vision Pro. It just won't be this version. And
that'll be the time where everybody decides to disconnect from reality, and it all becomes altered this and altered that.
Sure.
Man, I had a weird conversation with my son recently. There's a song that a young woman did. It's Olivia something, I remember. It's a song called Jealousy, Jealousy, right? I read about this in an article about social media and how she had written this song. And it's basically about how social media makes her feel, right? And it's about how it makes you feel jealous, and you realize that you're being illogical, but you're jealous of all these people that you'll never meet. And like it very much sums up the entire Instagram, TikTok anxiety that young people feel, right? And I was really curious about this, and I was like, okay. And I listened to it, and I was like, okay, that makes sense to me. What this young girl is saying, and I played it for my son, he's the older of my two little ones, and he's going into that kind of age bracket. But he doesn't have a phone. And he still has very limited computer access. He has access to the PlayStation and shit like that. But otherwise, like, I'm kind of keeping him on. I'm letting into the world slowly. Like, he uses computers at school whenever they need to, but otherwise, like, he has kind of very limited internet access, and he has no social media, right? So I had him listen to this song, and I was like, this is this song. This is what this song is about. Listen to this. Tell me if you understand this at all. Like, because this is something that is more prevalent to you than it is to me. And because he doesn't have social media and he's not plugged into that, he looked at me and he was like, what the hell is she talking about? He's like, this sounds awful. And I was like, okay. I was like, so this, like, this doesn't pique your interest at all. And he was like, no. He's like, she sounds miserable. He's like, what's going on with this? And I was trying to explain to him that, it's this kind of the popularity contest, the jealousy that you want to live the lives that these people project. And he completely did not understand it. And for a brief moment there, I thought that I was actually doing pretty good as a parent when it came to fucking internet sensibilities. Because I mean, there's kids his age that are like already near suicidal and depressed because they've been sucked into the internet of things and wanting to be these people. Whereas meanwhile, my son was having a hard time with oh god, what is the game he's playing? Overwatch. He's playing Overwatch 2. He was having a hard time playing people. So what he did was he went to play the AI, and he has systematically set the AI to like a harder and harder level. So he's playing it at like super difficult now. But the thing is, an AI is always easier to play, at least in games like these, than people, because people are devious and clever and they do mean things. Whereas the computer is always very straightforward. And he's like, you know what? I don't need to play people. I'm happy just owning the computer. And that's what he's done. He's fantastic against the computer. And I see him just like owning it and getting like team kills and being like, yeah. And he's like, and I'm like, you know, you could play people, you know, if you're not challenged enough, you could play people. He's like, no, I'm good. Like, I don't need to play people. He's like, you know, I mean, my kids don't curse, but the tone they take, he's kind of like, fuck people. I'm good here. And I'm like, good. And I'm kind of like, yeah, maybe he'll be okay. You know, when the technology finally, when I let him kind of have full access to it, you know, because he won't go through that period of, you know, oh my God, that person's life looks awesome on Instagram. I want their life. Why don't I have their life? Oh my God, I'm going to kill myself. You know, like that whole thing, which I'm hoping is a phase. I'm beginning to really see it now and say, you know, maybe this is a phase. And, you know, in a decade, people will look back and be like, you remember the social media craze and everybody was fucking nuts? Because, I mean, like, people aren't on Facebook the way they used to be Facebook. You know, like it's much older people now. It's not, and a lot of businesses, it's not the young, like, young nuttery that it used to be. Like, I feel like a lot of younger people now are on Instagram and TikTok. And, I mean, not you, because you're not allowed.
No, banned. Not shadow banned, just banned.
Just banned. Yeah, you know what? That's what happens when you do the talking penis puppets for 5 minutes on TikTok.
Really?
But but it's like, yeah, I think that's where a lot of young people are, and it's like, well, that at some point that will become uncool as well, because that is the way things work. You know, you do it until your parents do it, and then hold on, you're like, that's not cool if my parents do it. Like, Facebook's not cool anymore because your parents are on there. Your aunt and uncle are on there. Your grandparents are on there. You know, and that's why fucking I always call them MySpace. Facebook is trying to like expand into these other areas and stuff like that, because at some point or another, they're going to stop collecting as much data as they do, and they're going to have issues. So they need to, expand. They haven't made any talking home surveillance devices, have they? There's the Apple one. There's the Amazon one. Google has one. Like, I almost called it Serena. What the hell is the name of that thing?
Has who made one? Sorry, I missed who.
Facebook. Has Facebook
Oh,
made
yeah.
one?
No, they made the Portal. The Meta Portal.
Oh, the Portal. There you go. They have one, too.
Well, actually, I think it was called... I don't know if it's still in existence. I think they canceled it. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Here it is. The Portal Go and the Portal Plus. This is 2021. So, they may have retired this.
Yeah, so the thing is...
They did. It was the one that followed you. It kind of rotated. Oh, no, there it is. Meta Portal devices are no longer available, so they stopped.
Oh, there you go, yeah. So,
probably because people went, oh, no, what are we doing?
Yeah, right. All these companies have to either shift or expand or do something, because everything becomes uncool. And that is a nice thing that happens in reality, which is... the stuff that we found cool when we were kids will not be cool to our kids, and likewise their kids. They advance beyond it. And so TikTok and Instagram will be considered fucking, asshole when those kids become parents and their kids get older and look at them and go, what, you were dancing on the internet? What a jaghole, and like, it's just very funny, the kind of the way we're going. But I did feel kind of content with the fact that my son could not understand this negative aspect of his age group. It was something that was beyond him, and I was like, yay, it's like a minor success. Okay, minor, because I'm sure I'll find out down the road I've made 50 other mistakes, because that's parenting in a nutshell.
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah, so it's a puzzle. It's all a puzzle. Speaking of people doing weird and stupid things, did you see that they're putting guns on those Boston Dynamic drone dogs?
Well, they were always going to.
I know. It's not a shock. It's hilarious. It's the idea that, guys, you've seen the movies, you understand this shit, right? And you still mounted a gun on a Boston Dynamics dog and gave it machine learning targeting.
Yeah.
And their only response was, well, humans have to sign off on the final shot. And I'm kind of like, for how long? How long till somebody hacks one of those things and lets you shoot your neighbors through Facebook? I mean, think about that. How long till somebody hacks one of those things and basically has a portal on the dark web that's like, hey, pay me and I will direct this machine to go find your worst enemy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's laughable. I know you're like, well, you had to expect it. Yeah, I did expect it. But the point is that it is so laughably expectable. It's so stupid that they had to do it. And you see it. And at the same time, you see that they did that. Was it like a puppet that they put on that other one to make it look like a dog?
That was hysterical.
I know, but here's the thing. Now what happens, you're going to take both of those and combine it. You get a Boston Dynamics dog, you mount it with this big gun, machine learning, you dress it up like a little friendly dog, you send it out into a war zone, and someone's like, hey, is that a sweet little dog? Bang! Nope, it wasn't. Right. It's like...
Yeah.
Oh, man, I saw that article and I was like, why are we this dumb? Why are we this dumb? All it takes is that machine learning to go wrong. All it takes for that software.
Well, and it will. I mean, inevitably it will. That's the thing. It's just a matter of time. It will happen.
Yeah.
It's going to happen.
Yeah. And my wife is like, they're just ground drones. I'm like, no, it's not that they've mounted guns to another. It's not that they've mounted guns to another drone. It's the idea. For me, the big thing is the machine learning targeting, where I'm sure there's already drones that have it, but like, it's just such a bad idea. It's just such a bad idea. And because it's such a bad idea, that somebody in a military tech lab was like, hey, I know what we should do. Wouldn't this be neat? It'll be like Terminator, but like a dog.
But we'll control it this time.
But we'll have final say on targeting until there's any kind of glitch. Jesus, you can't get the video games to work right. And you think the machine learning targeting system is going to work right? You don't think the dog at some point is going to get struck by lightning and Johnny Five will be alive? Jeez, I read that. I was just laughing. That kind of laugh where you're like, oh my God, we're so stupid as a species. We deserve to wipe ourselves out. Is that kind of laugh. I figured I'd share that with you.
Oh, no, I knew about it. I mean, that's just...
Oh, I knew you knew about it. The second I saw it, I knew you knew about it.
What will actually stop it is when one of these things shoots a cop.
No, when one of these things takes out the bad guys and the good guys, and they're sitting there going, oh, whoa, did it just kill the entire SEAL team?
That's what I mean. It's
yeah,
not
when their own people get killed off, yeah.
Right, yeah, when one of the good guys gets killed.
What's more worrisome to me is when they send this thing covertly into a war zone and they gun down a whole crowd full of kids.
You know what, though? The thing that is going to happen is it is not hard to stop one of these things. They say it isn't. It actually is very easy.
Oh, no. They're going to camo it. They're going to dress it up like something.
No,
and that'll be the part that screws you. Because
that
listen,
is going to last.
What is your reaction to a friendly looking dog coming down the street? A friendly looking dog.
Well, if I'm in a war zone, there are no friendly dogs.
No. But if you're just but if you're not in a war zone, if you're just walking down the street, let's say you're in let's find a country that's middle of the road. You're in one of the more peaceful parts of Ukraine right now, not the front line, but on the other side of the country, right? And you're walking down the street and you see what looks like a sad German Shepherd walking down the street, right? There are people out there whose reaction is to go straight for that animal and be like, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And then it's like, "Bam! You're dead." Yeah, it opens its mouth and there's a desert eagle that pokes out. You know what I mean?
This type of thing is never going to work in that type of way. it's not, because now that this is now there will be ways to figure these things. It'll be like the Terminator stuff. You'll be able to find them out where these things are going to be used, and at least for the foreseeable future is they're going to be used in SWAT situations. They're going to send these things.
They'll send them
buildings.
in. Yeah, they'll send them in. Yeah,
that's what it's going to be.
Yeah.
The whole
no,
making it look like a dog.
listen,
that's a gimmicky thing. It's a PR thing. But that's all.
I understand that there is going to be a conventional.
Well, but what I'm saying is,
you're
not going to get to a point where they have these things walking around disguised.
No. Well, I don't know about that. I think in a war zone they will. They'll camo these things and they'll send them out there.
No, but in a war, this is what I'm saying is, in a war zone, there will be no trusting of anything because this stuff is knowledge.
Absolutely. You shouldn't trust anything in a war zone anyway, but
right,
it
so
does get very
Skynet. You see a dog coming down the
Skynet.
street, they're going to point some kind of device at it, and it's going to scan it.
Be like, no, they're not even. Knowing soldiers, they'll be like, it could be. Blow it up.
No, you know what? The funny part is,
No, you don't think so?
No. Human beings are more sympathetic towards animals than they are towards people.
They can.
So
well, they can.
Somebody will
be,
say,
yeah,
"Let's just make sure," and they'll point a thing at it. Like, no, it's a dog. Don't shoot the dog. Shoot that guy, but don't shoot the dog.
Don't 50 cal the dog, guys. It's just a dog.
Right.
Yeah, I know, but it's the fact that we always feel the need to do it, don't we? I mean, I can't wait for the updated version of Runaway that someone needs to make.
Oh sure. Well, yeah.
I mean,
it is sort of surprising that hasn't been remade already.
I only recently learned about the. Did you see the gun drones that came out? So in 2000, I think it was Boeing that did this. I think it might be Boeing. I had this at one point as a link because I was doing research on these for my book. They had these drones. Now in 2000 they came out, and the whole idea is they were selling these as a counter missile strike system, where essentially you would fire this thing up into the air and it fires bullets in all direction, right?
Yeah, the problem is parts kept falling off, so they couldn't make it work.
Well, hold on, and it would like basically shoot down.
It's a Boeing joke.
Well, yeah, I know, but this is 2000. This is before that.
You think this started recently?
Well,
come on.
Either way, listen. So they had this technology. I recently saw videos of it because I didn't know they built these things, and in the videos, right? They don't have these things flying into the air, right? In the video for these things, they have these things hovering up into what look like apartment blocks and firing in every direction like a fucking spatial gun bomb.
It's like a death blossom for the
like it is exactly like a death blossom for urban warfare. And I saw this and I was like, okay, I understand what you're selling this for. I understand what your concept is. But anybody who watches this fucking video that you guys made is going to sit there and look at this thing and go, you know what I'd like to do with that? I'd like to send that into a building where my enemies are and have it shoot everything.
It's downtown Death Blossom. It's great.
It is. Yeah, I used that in my book. Somebody threw that through a window and tried to dismantle an entire room in seconds. And it's like, yeah, that technology already exists. That is like so devastating. And the thing is, if I've had the idea, there's 1,000 other people out there who already did have the idea.
Sure.
And that's the thing. This is like Rule 34. If you're sitting there going, has anyone made anime of Wonder Woman and She-Hulk fucking? You're like, oh yeah, they have. Lots of people have. There's tons of art out there, right? That's how it is. If you've got an idea, other people have already done it. It's the same thing with murderous death technology. If you're sitting there going, that looks like a urban death blossom, that there's a bunch of people out there that are already going, that's an urban death blossom, and damn it, we can market that. So it's like looking at guns on the Boston Dynamics. I'm like, it's not that you're just waiting for someone to do something even worse with it. I'm waiting for the humanoid ones, the humanoid drones. I mean, that's the thing. That Boston Dynamics has got the upright droids that they're working on. Elon Musk has got a hard-on for a robot for years now.
The biggest problem with the humanoid ones is they're so far from being able to walk naturally that there's trying to make them look human.
Oh,
that's why the new one doesn't even have a human face. It's just got that circle on it because
spider bots. That's the real thing. When they say fuck it and they just start doing spider bots, those will be scary.
Because honestly, that's the dog with a couple of extra legs.
Yes, what I mean. The dog bot is scary, but you put a couple extra legs on that and mount a big heavy gun on it. Mobile tanks, man. Little mobile tanks. Oh God, the future's gonna be weird. So yes, and the machine learning thing.
Makes me wonder if there's a reason they haven't put more legs on that. Maybe it doesn't work as well as we think.
Maybe it's too many. It's too much to orientate.
That's what I'm wondering, because you would think that would be the natural thing to do.
Well, yeah, I mean it does feel like it. Hold on, let's see if they've done a test model.
Is there a
Boston Dynamics.
Spider drone. Oh, Spider-Man Homecoming movie. No. Oh,
no,
geez.
they don't seem. They seem pretty set on 4 legs. Yeah, everything I'm looking at has 4 legs.
I'm asking, why doesn't the Boston Dynamics robot have more than 4 legs? Is there anywhere?
Yeah, and that the new Atlas robot that's got the circle for a head. You know why it doesn't? Why it only has a circle for a head?
Yeah,
because that's where you put the cannon.
That's a good reason. Yeah.
No, it doesn't look like they've.
Yeah, I don't see anything where it's got more than 4 legs. So I wonder if there's an engineering reason for that. I don't know.
It's too many legs to
because you would just think that would give you more terrain ability, but maybe there's a converse end to that where when you have that many legs, they run into each other. I don't know. Maybe you have to space it just right for it to work.
Yeah,
I don't know. I'm not sure. It's interesting.
Funny.
If anybody knows, I'd be curious. I have no idea.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, there's these string of ads recently that have come out. Have you seen these where it's like, staying in the realm of advertisement? I'm forced to watch these because so many fucking streaming companies now have decided to say, "Fuck it, have some ads." It's for a company.
You're paying? Have ads anyway. Yay!
Yeah, it's a company that's all about investment. But then what they do is they have somebody doing something, and then they have a technology that starts being really creepy. But then it like does something nice. So there's one where a woman's about to leave her house. And she's like, "Okay, Siri." I was gonna say it's not Siri, but we'll say Siri for the sake of this. She's like, "Okay, Siri, I'm heading to the gym." And Siri's like, "No, you aren't. You aren't leaving." And they do it in like a sinister voice, and you're like, "Uh-oh." And then Siri's like, "You've forgotten your protein drink." And the woman's like, "Oh, thank you so much, Siri." And she goes to gets her thing, and she runs out. And they have a few of these where it's like sinister robot, and you're like, "It doesn't have to be, guys. Invest in the future." And you're like, "Yeah," because it's a joke because it's so commonplace now that you see new technologies come out and you immediately go, "Oh, well, how are they going to use this to kill lots of people?" You know, machine learning. You can make really stupid portraits that don't get the hands right, or you can target your enemies. You know, so it's anyway.
Do you know who that is? I'm trying to find it. I can't find it.
The company?
Yeah, the company. Just
no, I don't know. It's a.
I tried searching for creepy investment ads, and I'm getting some wild stuff.
At least you're not getting porn.
Well, depending on how you look at it, because okay, I will agree. I'm not getting outright porn, but I am getting things like I'm going to link you here, which is apparently a real vintage ad of a little girl, and the bold text says, "Eating out gives life a lift," and it's this little girl with big wide eyes and a piece of meat.
Hold on one second. What the hell have you sent me?
Yeah.
Jesus, that's kind of scary.
There are some really funny, I will say, for people, porn free. If you go look for weird vintage ads, there's really, really funny stuff because, you know, the phrasing was not always something that was.
Well, you saw the thing about the first Dr. Seuss book was called like Dr. Seuss's boners or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's because a boner used to be the slang word for a blunder.
Yes.
So like it's a book of blunders, but because of the lingo of the day, it's the book of boners.
Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff like that.
No, I can't find it.
Funny.
Oh wait, is this it? No, I can't find it. I see these ads all the time. They come up and I'm always like, "Oh, fuck you."
I'm sure some people know what you're talking about.
Yeah. What was the other? Oh, you know what? I had something else I was going to talk to you about. Oh yeah, I had something else funny to talk to you about. Have you ever heard of something called cryodynamics?
I don't think I've never heard the phrase unless I've heard it in a different way.
Okay,
Cryodynamics?
Yes. So
cryodynamics of research integrating cultural evolution, ergonomic history. Is this it?
Yes. Mathematic modeling of historical processes during the was it the longue durée? I can't even say that. And the construction and analysis of historical database. Basically, what cryodynamics is taking historical events, historical
it's a boner of a name, I'll say that.
yes, it is, right? and essentially trying to arrange these historical events into scientific patterns to see if you can start to see patterns in the behavior of cultures, groups, countries, like
Oh,
across
okay.
the across the big picture, right?
Sure. Pattern recognition for culture.
It's pattern recognition on a
Okay.
global level, right? So this came up because I was reading an interesting article about how, so I guess our anger level has been going up as a culture.
No, it hasn't. Says who?
Yeah. So like every year there's more instances of road rage. Every year there's more anger in workplaces. Like the anger level is going up, right? And on top of this, I guess these people who follow this, who create this cryodynamics, have said that they have noticed that there is a weird rage cycle culturally that we, as a planet, every 40 to 60 years seem to slip into some kind of high rage, outrage state before calming down for a bit again. Now, and we apparently are within the margins currently for another rage state. Now, what's interesting about this is that it's not always bad rage. So not all rage is bad. So and they give examples of like the civil rights movement. Civil rights movement is in response to an outrage. You feel rage over the fact that you are being treated with inequality, right? And that is a type of rage that then causes things to shift. So they're saying that it's not necessarily always bad, but that we have these cycles of great cultural shift that are based on some kind of rage, and that we're going into one right now, which is matching up with the numbers of all this stuff that's going on around us, where they're saying that, people are getting angrier, shit's going on. And like, I thought this was really interesting. I like this idea of we finally got enough of a sense of the numbers of history to start making kind of big, as you put it, pattern recognition on a planetary level. The part that worries me is reading this whole thing about how our anger is going up. The whole Universe 25 theory is always a sad, fearful shadow in the back of my mind, which is eventually you overpopulate a finite environment and you reach a point where the entire culture goes into the cultural sink and destroys itself. And I'm sitting there looking at this going, is it a cycle, guys? Or we've gone too far? I mean, I saw this thing, an economist the other day was talking about why capitalism is dangerous. And they said, it's not that, having a free market is bad. It's that having a finite system where people expect infinite growth is absurd. And you're like, yeah, it is. We can't go on like this forever. You can't infinitely keep making more money every year, because at some point you cannot make the products any cheaper. At some point you cannot lay off enough people. At some point you can't get rid of any more employees. You need them to run the fucking company.
Stock market says otherwise.
Yeah, I know.
Infinite
the stock
growth,
market,
baby.
The stock market believes in infinite growth. Yeah,
It
infinite
sure
growth
does.
in a finite environment. So like I was reading all this stuff about the cryodynamics and the anger quotient's growing, and I was just like, yeah, it's like Universe 20 cryodynamics is based on it's just following history as a timeline, right? But at some point there is that fear that things go too far, that there's too many people, that there's too much anger, there's too much inequality, there's too much everything, and then you tip into that cultural sink. And the thing that he never found out in Universe 25, I don't think he ever did this. So for those who don't know what I'm talking about, Universe 25 was an experiment where basically a psychologist had an environment where it was a perfect environment for rats, and they had all the food they could have and everything. And as they steadily overpopulated themselves, things went feral. The rats forgot how to be rats. They started killing each other. There were some rats that did nothing but sit in a corner and preen themselves as they slowly starved to death. There was madness, and they destroyed themselves. But the thing that he never said was there a point where the culture destroyed itself enough that it then counterbalanced? You know what I mean? Like if things go rageful and everyone starts killing each other, do you hit a point where suddenly, oh shit, you know what? We've killed 75% of the population of the planet. Maybe we should settle down. You know what I mean? Like, is there a counterbalance? So like, for example, if you read about like World War II and the number of people that died.
Well, logically, there would have to be.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Because at a certain point, if you don't have enough people to farm and to produce things so that other people can live, then they'll stop killing because they need somebody to work.
But does it go too insane is what I'm saying? Because there's, a little while back I was watching a thing about somebody was talking about whether Adolf Hitler was evil, right? And there was a big philosophical thing in there about there. Does absolute evil really exist and stuff like that? And the interesting thing I learned was essentially that towards the end of World War II, Hitler was splitting his resources between desperately fighting off the Allies and still sending people to the camps, right? If he had moved resources away from doing that, he could have put up more of a fight, right? He could have possibly negotiated a better end of the war for himself. But he didn't. In fact, he doubled down. He took, to some degree, he took resources away from the front and pushed them towards slaughtering more people to try and wipe out as many Jews and every other type of person that he hated, because it wasn't just Jews in these camps, as fast as he could, knowing that they were getting clobbered by the Allies. Right? And you look at that and you're kind of like, yeah, that's a gross misuse of resources. And then, Hitler killed himself. The war came to an end. And, Germany slowly rebuilt itself afterwards. And now, they seem to be a pretty mellow country. Right? That's a counterbalance, right? That they went absolutely as apeshit as possible, driven by a madman. And now they have counterbalanced, and they seem to be one of the greater forces for order in the EU. Not bad order, good order. I like to think, and that's kind of this counterbalance. From being a country of, in the greater historical context, a country that, that turned the world upside down for a while and is now putting the world back together to some extent, or being a country that is considered to be good at this point, right? Do we always get that counterbalance? And I want to get into cryodynamics more, because I'm actually curious to see, what is do they have any level of accurate prediction? Because I think they've been around since 2015. I'm kind of like, okay, you've been around for about almost 10 years, right? So have you made any predictions about the general culture that we can count on? Or is this like, the Psychic Friends Network, where anything you say, they can kind of push into the, well, it kind of fits the model. Well, it's like Nostradamus, where they're like, Nostradamus' predictions that were so amazing. And you're like, yeah, because they're so vague. If you say something vague, people always find a way to twist things to fit. That's how horoscopes work. You fit the details to match the narrative because you want it to. So that's my fear of cryodynamics, is like, can you guys actually perceive, are there actual patterns to recognize? And if so, what does that say about us as a species, that we make the same mistakes over and over again?
I don't know that it says much of anything, to be honest.
No, that we just...
Well, we've known this, right? Those who forget the past are doomed to repeat it. That is the indicator that we tend to do the same things over and over. If we don't recognize that we tend to do the same things over and over. So the patterning, it would not shock me
Yeah.
if there were patterns to some of it. Whether it's something where you can dial it all the way down, that's where I think it probably has some
No,
doubt.
I don't think you can get specifics, but you can sit there and go, hey,
But
guys.
in broad strokes, I mean, we've seen this where you see, populist people start to become, as civilizations and countries stagnate, they tend to start doing certain things over and over and over. This is none of what's going on.
A lack of stability causes a country to get very crazy. Yes.
Yeah, and also I think that to some degree what we're seeing is I've seen some people who've said this, and it makes a type of sense to me, that the only real difference for now throughout history is that technology is allowing the cycles to go faster because they're
and that's one of the things that does scare me, because the information can travel so much more quickly. You have to play optimist for a second, which is not my natural environment, but let's play with I don't know. Like I want to be an optimist.
Well, then
I am an optimist.
The optimistic way to look at the other side of that is that those same acceleration could potentially deflate some of these bad things.
I'll give you my optimism, right? The Cold War didn't destroy us. Now, I don't think it didn't destroy us because we had such great politicians. I think at the end of the day, the Cold War didn't destroy us because the people who were the actual boots on the ground were too aware of the scale of their decisions. So when, it's when there's the few times there have been things that happen where one side or the other could have misinterpreted it, and it was down to somebody being like, should I throw a switch? And then being like, you know what? I'm going to wait. And you're like, oh, look, you saved the world. Thank you. And I know there's one Russian example where something happened that was like a training exercise and it was misinterpreted, and this guy could have basically started World War III, and he did.
Well, sure. I mean, those types of things happen a lot.
And that's what I'm saying, is that is my optimism. That there are, at the people level, there are still hopefully people who are aware enough and logical enough to be like, you know what? Maybe let's not start World War III.
Yeah.
Groups are crazy. Politicians are nuts. But the individuals on the ground hopefully will be able to make things keep us from going over the cliff.
Sure.
Hopefully. Maybe. There's my optimism for you.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So, it would not surprise me if there were patterns to things. Like I said, it wouldn't shock me as far as what it actually means, and whether those the interesting thing to me would not be the identification of patterns. What would be interesting to me is the historical deviance of the patterns, meaning, do we see that, for example, as we see the kind of highs and lows of the way that society moves, do those highs and lows start to taper off in a positive direction, or are they always equal? Are they always going up and down by the same? Or is it, okay, from the 20s to the 30s, the up and down were equal. Then from the 30s to the 40s, the upside stayed up 5% more than the last time, where you can see, okay, it is actually trending towards a positive outcome. It may be a rough and long ride, or is it actually going the other way? I don't know. That's where that research would be interesting to me, is okay, there's patterns. I know. No kidding.
And the thing is, it's weird to me because I'm, like I said, I'm still doing that course about.
By the way, some of that is dictated by nature itself.
Oh yeah,
the seasons repeat.
Nature moves in cycles. Yes,
right.
Oh, the cosmos.
Yeah. Well, that's what I mean. Is so to some degree you have to sit there and go, yeah, no kidding. We are products of the environment around us. If it repeats, so shall we. But
I think it's a good point. Yeah.
But the thing that is worrying is, well, yeah, but the planet's getting hotter than it ever was. So the cycle is trending in a negative direction in terms of human life.
Yeah, and that is amusing to me. That is fascinating to me, because it's like, do I believe in global warming? I believe in global warming. I do. I do think that we are doing something that's fucking with the environment. But I also know...
Wait. Let's be specific, because I don't like that phrasing.
Fucking with the environment?
No, not that part. That we are doing. No. Human actions are a part of what's going on.
Yes, but
what
I do believe
curious about is what is the percentage of it.
Well, and I don't know enough to say what the percentage is, but I also know
and that's
that
not
the
me
planet...
saying I'm denying global warming.
Not at all.
It gets phrased often like, well, humans are doing all this. Well, don't do that, because then you give ammunition to the people who are fools and say it's not happening.
And it's not just that, it's that the planet has always moved in cycles. There have been ice ages. There have been times where it's gotten so hot in the previous epochs of this planet that the ocean has turned to acid.
And that's where the amplification effect of human action in terms of the patterns would be beneficial to know. Because if what science shows us is, okay, over 10,000, whatever, 1,000 years, it goes
let's go.
up like
Just
this
go
and
long.
down
You're
like
safer
this.
if you go long,
Sure, 10,000 years. It goes up this much and down this much. But we've noticed that since humans have become more technologically adept, the down angle is going further, which means that the rebound is lesser, which means that at some point, this planet is uninhabitable to human beings.
In 1303, there was a mini ice age.
Yeah.
It was a period of regional cooling, particularly pronounced in the North Atlantic region. It was not a true ice age of global extent. The term was introduced into scientific literature in 1939, right? But essentially, there was a mini ice age. The temperatures that were recorded were ridiculously way colder than anything that was recorded before that and since, right? Is a mini ice age. You're like, okay, so this weird shit happens. And like you said, if weird shit happens, if nature is on a cycle, then maybe you're right. Maybe a lot of this stuff is on a cycle because we are animals and we are, I was just saying to you before that I was reading about, we just had, so by the time this comes out, it'll have been a week, but the super solar storm thing that came through.
Storm, yeah.
Yeah. And I was just reading about how, the solar storm, typically there's solar storms all the time. They're very minor. They don't affect anything. But when you get big ones like this, they can affect circadian rhythms in humans. They can affect anxiety. They can affect blood pressure. We are animals on a planet that's firing through space at high speed. And the only thing protecting us is the atmosphere. And occasionally we get bombarded by very heavy shit. Solar radiation is nothing to fuck with. And I'm convinced that some of that can get through. And when it gets through, I think it can have an effect on us. If the tides of the moon can have an effect, if the moon can have an effect on the tides, and humans are mostly made of water, it must affect us. We don't want to accept that we are animals who are pliable by the cosmic forces. But we are. And if we really are, then yes, you are correct that maybe that is where the cycles come from. Maybe there are cycles of rage because there are things that happen in the cosmos that get people really pissed off. It's almost like, remember that the Isaac Asimov story, Nightfall? The planet that had never encountered.
Yeah.
Yeah, and here's the thing. On a long enough timeline, at some point the human race will encounter something that it hasn't encountered since since we were all Neanderthals or something like that. You know what I mean? Like something.
And that's what you're talking about is exactly what the interesting part would be. So let's take two pieces of a cyclical thing and apply them, right? So let's say that over time we see that there is a warming of the planet and the atmosphere and the environment for whatever reason. Forgetting even what the blame is. Let's just say because it's acknowledged that so far everything is measuring hotter and hotter, right?
Yeah.
Human beings tend to not like when a variance of temperature gets to a certain point. Now, couple that with the fact that, as you said, apparently everybody's more pissed off than they've ever been. Now start putting those together, and that's where it's like, okay, that's the valuable data. Not that it repeats,
people are hot and angry, yeah.
The variance of different things happening at the same time. What is the net effect of that? And that's where the data becomes interesting. So that's, that will be where the benefit of this is to identify the cycles. Well, we know there's cycles, but what happens when there's multiples and what happens if they coincide in a way that we know is detrimental to the well-being, whether it's physical or mental of human beings. Well, what is that going to result in? I don't know. Is that why we're suddenly seeing flare-ups of authoritarian leaders in different places? Because people are so exhausted and angry, they just want somebody to lead them and they don't want to have to think because they're hot and angry and tired and have no money? Maybe. I don't know. So, that's where that will be interesting to see what that actually tells us I don't know if that data is out yet. I don't know if there's anything like that.
No, I need to buckle down and do some more research on that.
Yeah, I'd be curious about that. I mean, I would be.
This is a field that I would get into. You know what I mean? Like it's that kind of.
Yeah.
And it involves so many different aspects. You need to have so many different sort of specialties to get this thing going. But I like it. I like it. It's
that's fascinating.
Forces.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, and the heat thing. Listen, there's a thing I read years ago that basically said, hotter places of the world treat women worse than colder places in the world.
Sure.
And I thought that was such like a bullshit statement, right? And
that makes sense to me.
And it's not that they treat them better. It's that areas of the world that are cold are so severe that you almost need all hands on deck.
Yeah, sorry. The better
work.
part, no, that. But the thing as far as places where it's hotter, they get treated worse. That makes sense to me.
Yeah, and so like they were saying how like the Vikings, apparently in Viking culture, women. It's not that women were equal, but that women were so important to survival that in essence they were different but just as important as the men.
Sure.
Because you needed, a lot of the currency was basically cloth, and the women made the cloth. So in that respect, the women were making the currency you were trading with. And when you were off to battle, the women ran the households. They ran the farms. They were authority figures. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Whereas in the Middle East, I mean, they were. At what point did they put women in burqas and tell them that they couldn't be seen?
Yeah,
I wonder where that started, what year that began, or is that like something that's gone back forever?
I have this feeling,
and like
forever, but I don't know.
And like Hispanic culture is hugely misogynistic. You know what I mean? Like you get more misogynistic as you get towards the what do you call it? The
equator.
The equator. There you go. I was going to call it the borderline. The equator. Yeah. As
The
soon as you get
terminus.
the closer you get to the equator, it's like it gets hotter and
Sure.
misogyny seems to rise. So, but like I said, and that is a general statement. I don't know if it's 100% true.
Yeah, of course. I was going to say, misogyny generally thrives in most places. It just seems maybe to thrive some places better than others.
Yeah, it's just in certain places, if survival is so difficult, all hands are on deck. Suddenly you give your misogyny a little bit of a leeway. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you restrain it a little less.
Hey, listen. Hey, in Russia, during World War II, female and male soldiers were fighting. There was, there wasn't a men's only army. They threw everybody at the Nazis.
Yeah.
That may be their one claim to fame and all that. Not in the sense of equal sex rights,
equality in battle.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Sure.
So yeah, that's all from my neck of the woods. That's all the weird shit that passed my desk. I shouldn't say that. There's lots of weird shit, but that's the only stuff I wanted to bring to the table.
Okay. Well, as a bit of a palate cleanser before we go into my review, I did want to. I brought a little something, a couple little things, because we mentioned. I don't know if it wasn't the last show. It might have been the one before. We were talking about the Stargate quote that you love so much, and just in case nobody's ever heard it, just for you. Here it is, everybody. Oh wait, hold on. This will blow your. But
here you're gonna hear it. But watch the movie because in context, it's way better.
No, it is, but still, you get the gist of it. So let me I'm gonna try this at 75%, and I think this won't be too loud. Let's see.
You're gonna blow my eardrums now.
Whoa! All right. Hold on. All right. Okay, that's fine. I can. The nice part is I can fix that in editing. That's the beautiful part. So.
Oh man. Yeah. Hold on till I can hear you
again. I'm going to drop it down to 40%. It's hard to judge. So
dude, you're like a mad scientist with this shit. This should make a small flame. A minute later, when all our hair is gone.
All right, so that was 75%. You want me to go to 50% or lower? What do you think?
Oh no, try 40. Try 40.
All right, let me go to 40. All right, here comes 40%. Let's see how you like this.
Jackson, wait for me.
Now you can barely
Really?
hear it.
Oh,
yeah,
that's
you can know. It's because it's not that. It's not the audio. It's the elevator. It's such a disruptive noise. Yeah. Whereas when you're watching the movie, you hear it, but you see it as well. Whereas with the audio of the elevator, It
So
is.
now,
I mean, it is the great scene in that movie. Yeah.
as I often say, I have those moments from so many different movies in so many different ways.
Oh,
So I have one here.
Have you been collecting them?
Well, this is I am starting to collect them, but I chose to launch with one that probably no one would ever predict this film to have a great moment in it like this. But once you hear it, which is Ghostbusters 2 of all things, and the thing about this part is it's
Guys
all
and
about
Cats Living Together?
Which one?
No, go on.
No, it's not the Death is But a Door. No, it's not that. That's what you would think. But this is all about the setup to a perfect moment of comedic line delivery. So I'm just going to play the whole thing. And it's all about the last thing you hear being the payoff to this. So here we go. Oh, wait. Let me lower this shit. I'm going to destroy yours. Hold on. I just realized I was about to hit play. I'm like, that's at max level.
Bring it down.
Let me put this one. I'm going to try this at 50%. And you tell me,
yeah,
if I need to
the
stop.
The elevator was too much at that.
Yeah, I think this will be more even because it's all mostly dialogue. So but tell me if it's too loud and I'll stop it. No, I have to hit play. Sorry.
Viggy, you have been a bad monkey.
Ray, we'd like to shoot the monster. Could you move, please?
Ray?
Ray! No! I, Ray, and Bingo shall rule the earth. Be gone, you pitiful half-men! Now!
It's all about the line delivery of now when he does that. That's the best fucking thing. That timing is so good because it's all this lead up and they're just staring at him and he's like, now! And they just start firing it. I love it. I love it. I think of that moment all the time. Love it. So that has nothing to do with the movie review I bring to you tonight.
And it shouldn't have to.
It shouldn't. But that's one I think of often is now. It's beautiful. Anyway, I watched a movie. I've heard of this movie for years. And I attempted to watch it, I want to say 7 or 8 years ago when I first kind of started hearing about it. But the only versions I could find were, I thought, unwatchable because of the copies themselves. And that's somewhat true, but it's also because the source material...
like the editions, the edits?
Well, it was clearly a multi-generationally taped off VHS copy, and the audio was next to...
Okay.
Well, it was indecipherable.
Yeah, it's really bad. Okay.
And that is because, even restored, this was a low-budget kind of passion film where at times the audio is just not good. And so there was no way it was not going to be worse by it being only available in low-quality versions. But George Lucas has this foundation that restores films called the Hobson Lucas Foundation or something like that. And they will put money into restoring films that are lost, forgotten, whatever. And so I've heard of this movie from 1962, and it's called The World's Greatest Sinner. And I didn't even know that it hit Criterion, except that I had seen a post by the artist Coop about it, where he recanted this very funny story where he and his wife, and I don't know which wife it was, but it was probably his first wife, because it sounded like it was a while ago, had gone to see this in some small theater in L.A., and over the course of the first 30 minutes, people kept walking out until it was just he and his wife, and they had a blast with it, which is hilarious.
They called the World's Greatest Sinner?
Correct, from 1962. Okay. The World's Greatest Sinner.
Yeah.
Okay. So this movie was written, directed, and starred an individual named Timothy Carey, who is a unique-looking individual if you see pictures of him, and you'll hear his voice. He has a very distinct way of talking. And the movie has been called a lot of different things. I think the Wikipedia article has it correct, where they call it a drama film. Because I've seen people say it's a black comedy, which I don't think it is. I've seen people say it's an art film, which I don't think it is, at least not by intention. This is not like Forbidden Zone, where Oingo Boingo was like, we're going to do the weirdest stuff possible because we're weirdo artists and we're just going to make what we want. This feels like, and I made this comparison in my short review, and I'll make it here again, this movie would pair perfectly with Kevin Smith's Dogma. This feels like somebody who made something expressing a true struggle with faith that they were having. The problem is, or not the problem, but what I think gets it the label of a black comedy or an art film is it's not particularly well made because it's very obvious that this person didn't know how to make a movie.
That's not. Well, I mean, you're saying is that what a black comedy is?
No. I'm saying that this is
okay.
getting that people laugh at this because there are parts that are badly done, but it's not because there are movies that are. It's not trying to make a joke of it. I just don't think he knew how to make a film properly and didn't have the money. And so there are parts that
a black comedy can also be a commentary on something. I mean, reading the description of this, so you're saying that what's funny is not meant to be funny.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think
Okay.
it feels like it's played straight because the essential premise of it. Now I'm going to play the intro in a second, but actually I'll play the intro first because the intro sets up the movie as far as the first thing you hear and see is the devil talking. So this first clip is the devil describing what the movie is going to be. So I'm going to play this, and you hear this voiceover, and you see a snake, just so that you know what you're dealing with. But, I mean, the voiceover gives it away. So the voice is talking as you see this individual, Clarence, and his family, wife and 2 children, and his neighbor, all just being, normal people, just kind of having a nice day outside and, kind of playing around and riding a horse and just, enjoying life. And then you hear this voiceover as we're seeing this as the intro to the film.
Oh, yes. This is the place where a simple, average American family lives. There's Clarence, my boy, just like any other male. The only difference is he wants to be God. And that's coming right out of the horse's mouth. There's Edna, his loving wife, and her brood, following Clarence to the very end. She has no choice. Alonzo, the gardener, Clarence's faithful friend, astute in the art of picking weeds. They all want to get into the act. Including myself. Oh, boy, that Clarence, my greatest possibility since the Apple incident. Don't let me down, Clarence. Don't let me down, boy, whatever you do.
So that's the setup. That's
All right.
Satan speaking.
Well,
Yes.
was that at 50%?
Oh, that was at 100. Too loud?
Oh, Jesus Christ, that was way
sorry.
too loud.
You should have said something. I would've stopped.
The second the car or whatever it was started going, it's just the atmospheric noise gets kind of heavy.
Yeah,
on the
well,
ears.
the other problem with this particular movie is the sound level is all over the place. It is. So there's parts so it's...
Bring it in
I'll
like
knock
60%.
I'll knock it down to 65. How's that?
Yeah, and see where you are there.
Right. Sorry. I'll adjust all this in the editing. But yeah, that's the problem is this movie you'll hear, and some of the editing will sound like I did it. I did not. It's just some of the editing is just not.
Well, yeah. So I read the plot.
Yes.
And I can see how it could play like an absurd kind of spiritual comedy, but at the same time, I could also see how this could play very serious.
No,
I
I read no comedy in this. There are parts of cynical, kind of sarcastic commentary, but they're not comedic. They are instead more of, if anything, it comes off as sad at times. Because what happens is after we get this intro, and then the next thing, it immediately cuts to Clarence at his job. He's an insurance salesman. And he's just sitting there, and he kind of looks dissatisfied. And he says to everybody in the office, he's like, you know what? Why don't you all just take the rest of the day off? It's like, go enjoy your life. Get out of here. This is not where you should be spending your life. And selling insurance is not something to be doing with life. Go out, take the rest of the day, and enjoy the day. It's a beautiful day. Get out. Go out there. And everybody kind of reacts strangely, but they're like, okay, well, if you're saying that, because he's a VP of some kind in there. And then his boss shows up and says, where is everybody? And he says, I told them to take the day off. It's nice outside. Let them go enjoy their lives. And he's like, what are you talking about? And he's like, all you care about is selling insurance. Is that what life is? Just selling insurance? And he's like, you have lost your mind. The boss says, you've lost your mind. You're fired. And he's like, fine. What do I care? And so he goes home, and his wife's there, and he says...
Is Clarence the one with the intense soul patch, by the way?
Yeah. Oh, that's a whole thing, because that's fake. But yeah, and
okay.
that's this weird... Yeah, there's bizarre things. But yes, that's him. You see what I mean? He's weird looking, and you'll hear his voice, and he talks really distinctly. So he goes home, and his wife's there, and he says... This isn't what life should be. It shouldn't be me just selling insurance. This isn't what people should do. He's like, we should all be able to we should all be able to live forever. He says, what is God doing for us if he just makes this being our lives? We're just sitting here just selling insurance. Like he's just dissatisfied with life. He doesn't think his life has a purpose. And so he goes to a rock concert, of all things, and he sees people kind of reacting to the people on the stage and kind of, Beatles style where they're screaming and, they're grasping at them and all this stuff. And he kind of watches that and he's like, huh. It's like, you know what? I think I can learn to play the guitar, and I think I can get people to follow me. I think maybe it's time for a new religion. I think maybe we should all be gods. Why do we need a god up there? Why are we not all gods ourselves? What makes God different than us?
I'm going to add something because you've mentioned the music now. I'm going to add something to this.
The Zappa thing?
Yeah, so Zappa did the soundtrack to this. It was his first film score. He was 22. He hated it. He made the music as an intentional parody of the music style of Elvis.
Yes. And so
that
honestly,
to me almost sounds interesting, the idea of Frank Zappa doing Elvis parody music.
I don't know. I had seen that, and honestly, the music of the movie, it doesn't really say anything to me. It feels generic. I guess you could say that is a parody, that maybe he thought that Elvis was generic.
Oh man, I was really hoping that it was going to come off like rockabilly.
Well, it is. No, it is, but it's not like, to me, Zappa made weird stuff, and there's nothing, if you told, outside of seeing his name in the credits, I would never guess Frank Zappa.
I hate to say it, I wasn't a huge Frank Zappa fan.
Well, neither am I, but he has distinctive compositions that I know of,
Oh, he
there's
wasn't dumb
of that
by any
here.
means.
No, but there's nothing in this. You would enjoy the soundtrack because it feels like straightforward. It feels like the Reverend Horton, he could have done this.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean.
Well, it's good, but it's not unique.
When I hear that Zappa's doing parody Elvis music, I'm like, isn't that basically rockabilly?
It is. That's what I'm saying. Is I don't know that point got across. At least not to me. Maybe it's an insider joke to musicians.
No, but that's what's funny is you want to add a level of comedy to this movie,
right?
Like because the movie itself is this guy's own kind of wiles end up kind of biting him in the ass to some extent. Well, yeah, the idea that Frank Zappa was like, I'm going to make bad music because, I don't like this movie. And it's
and honestly...
Yeah, but it actually sounds kind of cool.
that feels like revisionist history to me. I don't know that I even believe that. That feels like when this movie came out that it got panned and Zappa wanted to distance himself because... the music never comes off as intentional. I mean, unless, again, he thought that just rock music was a parody. Maybe. I don't know. Zappa was a weirdo, so who knows? So basically, Clarence, like I said, sees this rockabilly concert, sees people flipping out, and notices that the guy is kind of doing like... Oh, now, this part does feel like it is based on a combination of Elvis and actual evangelists. You know how some of them will start shaking? They do that shaking thing? Yeah. He sees that the lead singer is doing that and people are reacting to that the same way that when Elvis did his hip thing, girls went crazy. So he kind of puts together that, okay, the physicality is part of it. It has to be a show. It has to be something that draws them in. It can't just be you saying things. It has to be you putting on this idea of something and making a performance out of it. And so he decides to start a party called the Eternal Man's Party, where he's talking about the fact that people can live forever, that they have to let go of the idea of God as this concept and understand that they themselves, if they believe in themselves as gods, can be superhuman and live forever. And so the next clip you're going to hear is him basically out sincerely. Again, there's no indication that he's insane or anything.
I don't want to derail you here, but I just found something because of your movie that very much confuses me. So I was clicking on the actor who plays Clarence, right? Clarence is the Leighton guy, right?
Yes, Timothy Carey is the actor's name.
Yeah. I clicked on him to see if he'd done anything else because he's kind of a weird looking guy. He's very intense.
Oh, he's been in stuff. Yeah, he's been in stuff.
And that linked me to a show called 10 Speed and Brown Shoe. Have you ever heard of this?
No.
A con man and an accountant wannabe private eye team up to fight crime. It's a 1980s TV show.
Oh, yeah, look at that.
It's Jeff Goldblum.
Wow, yes, it is.
And apparently...
This is able to watch. You can watch it for free. It's streaming all over the place.
But apparently that guy was one of the extras in the show. That's how I found it. But I was like, holy shit. I've never fucking heard of this.
I've never heard of this, but I will now seek it out. I will keep that in the back burner.
Right, so
this guy was in Paths of Glory. He was in Kubrick films for a while until I guess he just started to hate him or something. So he's done movies, but Anyway, so he goes out and he starts to try to get interest in this. And the gardener that was mentioned in the beginning thinks he's right and is basically his right-hand man. So you'll hear him at points talking. But he goes out, and this is his first kind of going out in the public and starting to speak to him. And in the beginning, you will hear him refer to his boss, the guy who fired me. All he cares about is insurance. You'll hear all that. But the interesting part is listening to this guy talk, because he has this really, again, distinctive way of speaking. You know what? I want to look something up real quick. I meant to look this up. Where is he from? Was he born in New York? Brooklyn. No kidding. You'll hear that right away. Okay, I thought so. But here we go. So just listen to this. And this is him espousing his religion. Again, this is not played for comedy. He's saying it seriously. There's no indication he's mentally ill. Not in the way that you would think that maybe the movie would play it. What it feels like is somebody who has just found that their life, he doesn't find a purpose in faith and God and life. And he just wants to find an alternative to it. And this is his idea of what that should be.
The superhuman being will live forever. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to show you something that's never happened before. Each and every one of you can be gods. There'll be no death.
What a shame.
Just living. There goes my boss who fired me. Last week, look at him. All he cares about is insurance.
Keep it up. You're doing great, Clarence.
What does people care about when there's death? There's only life. Life eternal. Everybody here, follow me, and I'll show you a road to the end of the world.
Hey, why don't you get out of here? You kind of guys are always causing trouble.
Kind of trouble I'm gonna give you, my friend. You're gonna like, because you're gonna follow me.
What a jerk!
All right, don't laugh at me. I don't care.
I like what you said about death. My old man died too young. Life isn't worth a plug nickel anyway.
We'd like to try something different like this for a change.
Well, I certainly could have you if you want to.
That's right. Something like this is a challenge.
All right, just follow me. Hand out the pamphlets, Alonzo.
Have a pamphlet.
I promise you, you'll be gods.
Hey, you. You're blocking my place of business. Why don't you move this carnival elsewhere?
I'll give you, sir, more business if you follow me. The eternal man's business.
Take your business down the street.
Hey, what you gonna do with that guitar?
Well, I'd like to make a little speech here if I can, if it's all right with you.
Well, all right to me, but there's hardly nobody around this time of the morning.
That's all right. I'll work them up. Don't worry. You keep the change.
Thank you.
It's all right.
Good luck.
Everybody, Clarence Ilian is here, and he's gonna tell you a little bit about eternal life. I'm not a preacher, and I'm not drunk. I'm just a politician. He hears me. Does anybody else hear me around here? I formed a new party called the Eternal Man's Party. Even if I gotta tell it to the dogs and the chickens, everybody come on up out of your houses. Clarence Ilian is gonna make you a super human being. There's the First Lady. Lady, I can make you live forever. You're a little old, aren't you? They tell you that you're old. Well, I'm telling you, I'm gonna make you young. I'm gonna make you so young that everybody is gonna reek with jealousy.
Now I really didn't change much of that at all. So you can see what I mean about the volumes kind of all over the place. The ending I cut one part where he blows a whistle, then your ears really would have exploded. So I did cut that part out, but that's really all I edited out of there. And that's what I mean about, think about a VHS copy or multiple copies of all that audio and how bad it would be. So, and that's the tricky part, was trying to get the volume on this right. But that's what he's espousing, is this idea. And again, there's no point where we see him secretly making money out. There's no point where we see him telling Alonzo, oh, this is a hell of a racket and we're going to ride this. It's all played sincere, that this is something he actually believes. And he's telling people this, and he's starting to gain a following. And as there's a large, I'm going to skip ahead. I'm not going to do every little bit of it. But as it goes on, more and more people start coming to him because they're dissatisfied with the way things are going. And they're like the old woman he was talking to. She's afraid of death and there's nobody left in her life. All her friends have died and her kids aren't talking to her. And he's like, I can I can make you young. You will live forever. Don't worry about it. And again, saying it what appears to be sincerely because he thinks that there is a way for this to happen. And he starts gaining people, and they start calling him God. So you'll hear in clips, they're referring to him as God Hilliard. And he's getting bigger and bigger crowds. And he says, well, the easiest way for me to get people to understand this goal is, he says, Republicans, Democrats, they're all crap. They're all just trying to sell you something. I want people to feel empowered, so I need to be president. And so he starts a campaign, or he starts trying to put together a campaign to be president. And so they're starting to put together like a structure of this. And what you start to see is he starts to not necessarily, I don't think the right term would, he starts buying into it himself a little too much. Not meaning that he's doing it in I'm going to take people's money type of thing, but
he believes he believes he'll find the power.
Yeah, and he's like the old woman that he's talking to, who is an older woman. I mean, the actress playing her is probably in her 60s, and he is, I'm going to guess, in his early 40s, and he's talking to her at one point, and she says, I'll give you money. And he says, no, I don't need your money. I just need you to follow me. And she's like, no, why don't you take it? I don't want to give it to my kids. They're going to just waste it. And he's like, well, all right. I mean, rather than have it wasted. And then he starts making out with her because he's like, yeah, you're going to be young. I don't see you as an old lady or something like that. And he just starts making out with her. Then a 14-year-old comes to him, and the same thing happens. And it's just that he's starting to, the ego inflation thing starts to happen, but not because you think that's what his goal was all along. It's that he's getting caught up in it, right? So then there's a point, because now he's getting to, so somebody does come to him with a fake soul patch, and they put it on him because it's like, oh, it'll be more theatrical. You know, you can grow on yourself, but for now, just put this on, and that way people see it, and it's, you know, it'll look better in the visuals in front of your band. And he's playing as a band in a band, because he is doing that rockabilly thing, and he's doing the shaking thing, and people are flipping out and all this type of stuff. And now with his followers, people start saying things like, we want God, we want God. They're starting to riot because there's a point where they close a venue, and they're like, why should we care if they close it? We're God, screw it. They just start breaking in and destroying everything. And, you know, but they can't really do anything to him because he's not telling them to do it. This has a lot of echoes of January 6th when you start to project it forward.
Well, also, was it Manson?
Yeah, exactly. All this type of stuff. So and this is an important scene only because this is where he's really now kind of where he's got this massive amount of following, and he starts actually acting kind of like he is God, in terms of what you're going to hear is him giving a guy a gun and telling him to kill himself, which the guy does. But the audio is interesting because you'll hear him kind of starting to get a little almost Dune-like, where he's becoming the Messiah thing and he's not aware of what it's going to end up doing to him. So this is a short clip, but it's interesting.
What's your complaint?
Clarence, you're not a god.
I taught you to be a superhuman being, and you're nothing but a weakling. Everybody here in the party despises you.
That's right, you did that, Clarence. I even lost the respect of my whole family because you set yourself up as a god. You ridiculed everything that was decent.
There's no place in the world for weaklings.
I'm not weak.
You lost complete control of yourself. Take it.
Go on, take it!
So you can hear there that he's starting to lose himself in this. Again, it never comes off like he's evil. It's just that he is now really starting to see everybody as, okay, like he said to the guy, if there's no room for weaklings. It's not really even that the guy questions him. It's more of the fact that by rejecting the ideology, he is in fact weak and he's not one of these eternal beings. And so I'm trying to remember. Oh, then he gives this big speech, and, you know, he's telling everybody, okay, if I'm president, then, you know, everybody can have this. Everybody can be an eternal being and all the rest of it. And right after the speech, he's suddenly approached by somebody who I immediately pegged as Satan. I mean, it's pretty obvious who it's supposed to be. I don't think it's the same voice as the opening, but it's tough to tell because in the opening it's somebody, talking into a mic doing a voiceover, and you're hearing the actual, I think, live audio of this person. So it could be the same person, but basically it's a guy who shows up looking like Dr. Strangelove with the dark sunglasses and in a suit, and the way he's talking, I mean, you immediately clock that this is supposed to be Satan. And when you hear him talk, it becomes even more obvious. And he's got an idea of how God Hilliard can actually win. And this is him basically introing himself and telling him how he can actually become president.
God. You're a great speaker. Let me congratulate you. Here's my card. Maybe you've heard of me. I've dabbled in politics myself. Why don't you give me a call? I can help you. God. History has never been wrong. If you can stir the people's emotions, you can win. Now, I've spearheaded one of the leading parties that's in power today. But because a few jealous underlings and I made a deal that wasn't quite kosher, I got into a few difficulties. But we won't go into that now. See, I have the contacts to help you. And I can make you a political threat in short order if you'll listen to me.
That makes sense what you're saying. But to throw away my guitar, that's what I use to stir their emotions.
It's carnival. You're gonna stir the people's emotions with politics. Something this country has never seen before. It's bad enough that name of yours, God. But I can use that to an advantage. You see, you're a dark horse, and I want to see what kind of a race you can run. And I have the know-how and the money to help you. Just get rid of your guitar, Clarence. Burn all these bridges behind you. And listen to what I say, and you'll really become a god.
Well, maybe later.
Oh, no. It has to be right now.
Clarence then takes his guitar and smashes it to pieces in front of Satan. I mean, they never name him, but Satan, basically. And you can hear it. I mean, like I said, it's pretty obvious what's going on. If you listen to some of the double speak he's saying, it's pretty clear who it is. And so he starts listening to Satan. Again, we'll call him the political consultant or whatever. And he starts having more success. But then the guy who he gave the gun to kills himself, and it becomes public that guy killed himself because Hilliard told him to. And that starts having people question his morality. And then this thing turns into, well, wait a minute. Have we ever even heard this person say he believes in God? Because, I mean, that still is in American politics, certainly, that atheists don't generally get to be elected. And so people are saying, because then his wife, who he's estranged from at this point because he won't ever see her, and of course he's having sex with women all over the place. And so she's saying, I don't think he believes in God anymore. This all started because he was questioning whether God mattered, and now he thinks he's God. And so there's a point where his people come to him, and this next clip you're going to hear, where they're saying, hey, you have to tell the public that you believe in God because you can't win otherwise. And he doesn't want to because he doesn't think there's a reason for it. But this is an interesting little clip because this is still something, at least in American politics, that's true. I mean, I don't know of anybody who's run for president that's ever said they don't believe in God. If anything, they always have to, whether you actually think they do or not. So this is kind of a interesting little clip right here.
Religion holds a very sacred place with the American people, God. Not that you condemn it, but you don't advocate it either.
The papers are calling you an atheist. I know that's ridiculous. To your platform, every man can be a god in his own right.
You must understand, God. You have to convince the people that you're not an atheist. Otherwise, all is lost. Even your wife has made some derogatory remarks about your stand on religion. And these statements have been published.
I'll take care of my wife. Is everything ready for my speech tonight?
Dismissive, as you can hear, but there is a comedy in the fact that they keep calling him God and talking about the fact that he can't be an atheist, which does make a sort of sense. If, how can you be an atheist if you're saying you're God? I mean, there is something in there but I don't read it as comedy. It's more of just a commentary on something. It's interesting. And so his solution to getting rid of his wife is to basically send her away to another country. He's like, you're going to go on vacation. You got to get the hell out of here. And so he sends her away, and you see he's now, he's doing all these tours, and he's getting huge. I mean, I'm sure what they did was they took file footage of, crowds from actual giant, like, political events and rallies and stuff. But he is now this huge figure, right? And finally, his wife comes back after a year of being away and says she wants to see him. And he's like, no, I don't want to see them. And Alonzo, his basically right hand, says, you really should see them. You haven't seen them in a while, and she really wants to see you. It's only fair that you actually, at least talk to him. He's like, fine, I'll talk to them. And they come in, and his daughter comes up to him with, I don't know, some kind of, almost like a prayer card or something, and says, I don't believe that you don't believe in God. I don't believe that you're an atheist. I don't believe this. And if you just give yourself back to God, then everything will be solved. God will forgive you. And he basically throws her down in this fit of rage, at which point his wife grabs the kids, they leave, and he has this reckoning of what he's become. And he has this breakdown, this huge breakdown, where he's seen himself because he threw his daughter down. He's gotten this moment of clarity to what he is now. And he basically tells all of his people, he's like, I need you to leave. He's like, you have to get out. And he throws them all out, at which point he starts to talk to God. And that's this clip, where he basically says, if you are there, this is the point where I need you to tell me, because either I'm completely wrong or I'm completely right. And this is the last chance for you to reveal that you are actually there. So let me play this clip, because this is now towards the end of the movie. Mm-hmm. But this is him pleading with God to reveal himself to him.
There is a supreme being here, or up there, or wherever you are. Hear me. Hear me, please. I don't believe. I don't believe, but there can't be the slightest doubt. Thousands of people will follow me. I can't lead them all astray. So wherever you are, hear me, please. If you're up there, show me something to make me believe. Show me something. Mother, let me see what your prayers can do. God Almighty, I defy you. I defy you to show me if you're God. If you're better than I am, if you're more than I am, show me. Let me see what I mean to you. Show me if you're really a God. Because I doubt so much. Oh, God. I promise you, if you're there is someone bigger than man. If there's someone stronger than man, I will give up everything for you.
And that's this big moment where basically he's reached the end of it. So he decides that the way he can, because he hears nothing. So you heard that musical cue. And then the next thing you see, you start to hear the church bells, is then you see a church, and there's people in the church, and you see him show up, but he's kind of hiding himself. He's got a big overcoat on. He's got like heavy glasses on. So because he's a celebrity, basically. People know who he is, but he hides. And he hides in the back of the church, and he waits till everybody basically leaves, except like one old woman who's not really paying attention. And he goes up after the priest leaves, after the mass, and he takes one of the consecration wafers or whatever they call them, the thing they put on your tongue, whatever that is.
Yeah.
Because his daughter, the plaque had said something about, this is my body, this is my blood, the famous, I don't remember the phrasing, but whatever it is. So his plan is, okay, I'm going to take one of the communal wafers. That's what they're called. I'm going to take a communal wafer, and I'm going to steal it, and I'm going to stab it with a pin. And if it bleeds, that means that this is real. This will be God's sign to me that he's there, that this isn't all just make believe. So he steals it, he leaves, he goes back to his house, and he holds it up, and he has this pin, and you can see he's hesitating because he's afraid of what's going to happen. And so then he stabs it with the pin, and nothing happens. And so he takes it out and he waits. And he's kind of looking around. And then he stabs it again. And nothing happens. And he starts just laughing like a maniac and just stabbing it, and it starts falling apart. And he basically drops it and he said, I knew it. There was nothing here. It's all for nothing. There is no God. And he leaves. And his political, like his campaign office happens to be, I don't know, I'm going to say 1,000 feet from his house, like across the lawn or whatever. So he goes over there to meet with his people and basically tell them, okay, nope, I had this moment of crisis, but it's over with, and I was right, and we're going to keep going. And he goes in there, and right when he gets there, he opens the door, and then he sees. Now, I've seen it described as a slime trail. What I believe it's supposed to be is blood, because in black and white. There's only really one moment of color, which is about to show up. But the whole movie's in black and white. So there's this, I think what they probably did was took a bunch of ketchup because they didn't have any money. And so that's why it looks the way it does. But I believe what it's supposed to be is he sees a line of blood leading back to his house. And you see this kind of look come over his face. And then he starts running. And he's running and he's following the trail. And it goes into the house. And of course it goes up the stairs. And he comes into the room where the wafer is. At which point he yells, God, and everything turns to color. And there's this blinding light. And then the movie ends. And that's it. Then you just see credits. And to me, of course, what that, it's described as he challenged God and was defeated. If you read like summaries, they say he was defeated by God. Well,
basically God says, I will show you.
God revealed himself.
God revealed himself, yeah.
Through the blood trail. And then you don't know what he sees. You never see it, but you would have to imagine that it's either God himself or that the wafer was, made whole or floating or whatever. But that's the only part where it turns to color and there's this bright light. And then he kind of collapses and yells, God, God, or something like that. I don't remember the exact wording, and then the movie ends. And that's what I mean about, I don't think this is supposed to be anything other than a sincere kind of, again, it reminds me of Dogma in a lot of ways. It's the only movie I can think of that's like this, but without Dogma is a comedy. That's an overt comedy. But that same thing where somebody is expressing because I can't find anything about why he made this movie. Nothing. So I have to go by what the movie is. Right? Somebody who wrote, directed, and stars in it. That's intentional. And based on the clips, there's nothing in there. There is comedy in the fact that, again, the audio is all over the place. The editing is very choppy. There's an ineptitude in the filmmaking. But there's nothing of comedy in there to me. It feels like a sincere person writing a fictional account of their struggle with faith, and then I guess at some point he must have found his faith based on the ending, or something, I don't know. I guess you can interpret it how you want, but certainly the character challenged God, and God said, well, here I am then, and he had said, I'll give it all up, so you have to assume that he wouldn't go back on his word, especially if he knows God is there.
He gives it all up in the end, yeah.
Yeah. So I thought it was a really interesting movie. It's not the most well-made movie. You can hear that, and you'll see it as well if you watch it. But I was fascinated with it because I was sitting there after it finished. It's only maybe an hour and 20 minutes. It's not very long either, so it goes by quickly. And his performance is so singular. I mean, he looks weird. He talks weird. It's just riveting. And so that for a while I was sitting here going, what is like this? I can't think of anything like this. And then right before I did my short show, it occurred to me that, Dogma. That's the only other movie I can think of that's like this.
This movie, actually, there's... have you ever seen the movie Fearless with Jeff Bridges?
Oh, yeah.
There, just the idea that he survives that car crash and he thinks he's immortal. He thinks nothing can kill him.
Yeah, I could see that, yeah.
And he spends the whole rest of the movie essentially challenging death to kill him.
Yes. So the very end of this is a lot like that in terms of him challenging God. But up to that point, like I said, it really just feels like somebody who saw life and thought it was empty and decided that there had to be a solution, and this was the solution. And the other thing that you hear him mention my mother's prayers.
She dies, isn't she?
She dies, yes. And that's one of that and the family, and when he throws the daughter down, all of that becomes this kind of, because he thought his mother would live forever, and she doesn't. That is the first kind of crack in his face.
Yeah, it's funny.
He's telling everybody to live forever.
It's weird because there's almost something childlike about it.
Yeah, there is. Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
of course these people were going to die.
Well, what it feels like is there. Yeah, it's like I said, it's really interesting to think about it in context of what the movie gives you, because if you think about it in terms of somebody who just one day says, okay, there's no point to any of this, and isn't satisfied with that answer but can't believe in God, well, where else can you go? Right? I mean, you have to invent something then. Because if you can't accept that life is pointless, which he says not those exact words, but he says something along those lines of, this can't be all life is just randomness. But I can't believe in God either because God wouldn't allow these things to happen that are happening. Then you have to come up with a third alternative. Because either it's random or it's directed, and if you don't believe either of those things, then what else is there? And his solution to that is, well,
make something.
Why is it that we can't just be gods ourselves? I mean, they never get into the nuts and bolts of how that would ever work. But the fact that he suddenly gains a huge following tells you that obviously there would be other people who would, and I have no trouble believing this would be real if it actually happened. We've seen variations of it.
But that's what I mean. There is it's almost like he has a temper tantrum.
Yes. Yeah, more or less.
And in doing so, he has a spiritual temper tantrum, and he says, no, we're going to live. And it's like a child going, no, I'm going to live forever. I'm going to live forever. No. Yeah, you see, I will live forever. And it isn't until the adult shows up and says, no, man, you aren't. And but the devil, of course, is chiming him on because the devil's like, yeah, go ahead, challenge God. This is fun. Right. Yeah, see if you can get God to reveal himself. Come on, this will be great.
But what makes the movie more interesting than the simple kind of temper tantrum is it doesn't feel self-centered. Not really, because he's telling people...
No, he's not doing it just for himself.
Yes, that's what's different is when you talk about like Manson or Jonestown, all those people, when you dig into it, they really just wanted to be able to do whatever they wanted. But the problem is
he is drinking his own Kool-Aid on this.
Well, he eventually, that's the problem, is he gets subsumed by it. And of course this makes sense. This is a human failing. If everybody tells you that you can do no wrong, at some point you're going to start believing it. This is kind of the billionaire problem, right?
Absolute power corrupts
absolutely. That's it. Right. So that's the kind of logical endpoint to this thing is, and that is kind of one of these moments where if somebody had true outside perspective of themselves, they would realize that, well, I'm now succumbing to the humanity that I'm saying that I can make people not be above. And if I'm succumbing to it, then I must be wrong. But you can't get to that point. You can't self-reflect when you've been placed above everybody and you start believing it. That's the problem with it.
No, because at that point you are godlike.
Yeah, and his message always is not that, even though they refer to him as God, he constantly says, there was a clip and I didn't get it, where he's saying, you are all gods as well. It's not just me. Like, he is espousing the idea that everybody can be equal in their godhood, which is sort of an interesting idea by itself, because there is no godhood if you're all gods. Then there is no godhood. What is it? It's nothing, because you're all just equals then. But that's what I mean about that's what makes it a little different than just kind of the traditional egomaniac thing. It's just that he, like you said, after a while, nobody's challenging him, nobody's disagreeing, and so he starts to buy into it too much, and he becomes not evil, but he loses morality. His moral judgment just goes out the window, and it's not until his mother dies that along with when he throws his daughter down, and that kind of shocks the system where he's able to break out of it for a minute because he's now seeing things. One thing has defied his whole concept of eternal life, and the other is he's done something explicitly evil. And that's what makes him stop for a minute and at least have within the framework of the movie, the morality to say, well, wait a minute, what if I'm wrong? Which in itself is something that is remarkable, that he actually, his thing of show me that you're there and I'll stop. That is the recognition that, wait a second, maybe I have this wrong. He says, I don't want to lead all these people astray. That clip you heard. That's where you see him kind of reset back to, I may have crossed the line here. Like I said, it's an interesting movie. It's not very well made. I can't pretend it is. But there is something worth seeing about it at least one time. It's an interesting film.
It sounds like they're playing with very heavy ideas.
Yeah. And I think if this was played by a normal actor, somebody who wasn't this
No, if this
remarkable.
if this had more money, if there was a better budget, and they did a few things differently
And better
then
writing, let's be
yeah,
honest.
yeah. Basically, if you just Hollywooded this up a little bit money wise,
Yeah.
you know, this would be a profound movie where a man questions his faith.
Yeah, it could be. So the only bad thing about it is you can only watch it on Criterion, as far as I know.
Why did Coop love it so much? Did he say?
I don't know if he specified. Well, okay. Number one, Coop likes outsider Americana stuff, and that's what this is.
Okay.
This is like this is the exact type of thing where some weirdo artist makes his own. You know, this is David Lynch without all the artistic vision. This is just somebody who made something that he wanted to make and did it. So I think it's more of, because, you know, Coop's big into rockabilly and Americana. So I think those sensibilities are probably why he likes it. I think he was more commenting on the fact that they had a great time with this movie that drove everybody out. And maybe that's part of it too, is that, you know, people were offended by it, I guess, which I could see. I mean, he does make out graphically with a 14-year-old, or at least what the movie says. I mean, I'm sure she's like 20. She doesn't look 14, but you know, there's several moments where you're like, oh, this movie is not afraid to show some things that are going to disturb people. So it's probably elements of that, but I don't know. Like I said, I thought about it for a while after I watched it, because I went, yeah, this is unlike most things I've seen. And there was something that is different about it. And the fact that it was restored by Lucas and this foundation. Scorsese loves this movie. He says it's the best rock and roll movie that's ever been made, or something along those lines. There's a number of people with, you know, names within the film industry who think this movie is great. And I can see why. Because it has this very, very specific voice to it. I've never seen anybody... The way he talks and acts is so distinctive. And again, the sincerity of it, where it doesn't feel like it's being... like it's poking fun. It is something
man.
something.
Yes, Scorsese does say, he named it as one of his favorite rock and roll films.
Yeah, it's
interesting.
That's and the reviews are love it or hate it, and they're all over the place, which, you know, is my catnip. So I thought, okay, all right. And the fact that it's on Criterion in this as restored as possible, believe me, it is still not pristine by any stretch of the imagination. That's the Criterion audio, and you hear it's all over the place. So. For anybody who hears those clips and is interested in something like this, you will be satisfied watching it. I can't just blanket recommend it, but I haven't seen too many movies that do what this movie is doing with this type of, you know, like, okay, there's been movies about faith before, Life of Brian, you know, those are comedy movies, or Dogma, which is a comedy movie. This feels like somebody attempting to have a sincere grappling with something and made a movie based on it, not particularly well, but with the integrity of trying to express what he probably went through. I would not be shocked if he had some type of spiritual crisis, and maybe it was only for an afternoon, said, well, why couldn't I be God? Why is God better than me if he lets this happen? I mean, a lot of people have that moment, I think, where they struggle with faith and say, well, if God is there, why are these atrocities happening? And if they are, then is he any better than I am? If he's allowing children to have cancer and die, or, you know, people to be mass murdered and buried in graves and all this stuff. And so he took what probably for some people is a nanosecond of a questioning and blew it out into, well, what if I ran with it? And he does say at one point in one of those opening clips, I'm a politician. I'm not drunk. What does he say? I'm not drunk and I'm not a preacher. I'm just a politician. So there probably is some level of commentary on the fact that it is well known that there are many people who go into politics, say they're religious, and are in fact are not, that you find no evidence they've ever gone to church, that they have any belief in God whatsoever, that they're saying things because they know people want to hear it. Oh, God, you have to convince them you're not an atheist. Wait a second. The guy is being called God by millions of people and says he's a superhuman being, but he has to prove he's not an atheist? There is something of that in here, too. It's all these elements with, again, a gonzo performance of like a Joe Spinell level person who clearly was a little bit off his rocker. It puts together a movie that is better than it really should be for what it is, and is more fascinating. So that's the reason I would say to watch it. The problem is, if you find it anywhere other than Criterion, I think you'll find something that is literally unwatchable, not because of the visuals, but because of the audio, which even in this version, there were a couple of things where I had to look up what he said because it was so hard to hear it. because the mic was so blown out that it was just like, and I'm like, what? I mean, I got the gist of it, and I was able to find most of the quotes of it from people who also struggled with it. But that's what I'm saying is you go watch it on a crappy YouTube version, you won't be able to understand half the movie. And I think even though it is not the most expertly written prose I've ever come across in a film, I think what is being said and what the ideas are what make the movie. It's certainly not the filmmaking. It's this expression of something. And based on the fact that I can find no evidence or nothing, there is no record of how this movie came about or why. I couldn't find any interviews with him. Nothing. He's dead. He died in 94. And I can't find anything on why this movie was made. So if it comes out that there's an interview or if there's something released where he says, oh yeah, it was all a joke, I just wanted to prove that I can make a movie to make people angry about religion. Well, then, okay, then it was that. But in the vacuum of that, in the absence of anything contradicting that this was written honestly, I'm taking it at face value. And, you heard the clips. It doesn't feel like it's a parody or a joke.
He sounds pretty serious.
Yes, and that's when you put in combination that he wrote it, directed it, and starred in it, that's really specific. He's not an actor doing somebody else's words. He did the whole thing on this and put it together. So, again, barring something, and it could happen 5 minutes after I hit the stop button on this recording, something could come out saying, oh, yeah, no, it was all just a big joke. It was an Andy Kaufman type of thing. Or Andy Kaufman wrote it or whatever. Shadow wrote it. But without any of that, taking all that we have, which is just this movie, and I can't find any supplemental material on it. It was never released, has never been released in any form, physically. So there's no, I don't know if Criterion will ever release it or not. There's no evidence they will. So without anything else to fill in the gaps, all you can do is take what the movie gives you based on the fact that he was responsible for the entirety of the movie as far as the core parts, which writing, directing, and starring, well, that's the core parts. And this was not a movie with thousands of people and multiple writers. It's just him. You can tell. I have to look at it as, okay, what does this feel like? And what this feels like is an exploration of a spiritual crisis, which, based on the ending, you would think that he came back to go, okay, I still believe in God, because otherwise the ending doesn't really make sense. And
so then the real question is, because he comes to God, does he then win and be president?
Well, that's stuff
like when he says
on yourself.
When he says I'll stop all this, does he mean he'll stop having doubt in God, or does he mean he'll stop being a politician?
Well, based on the last clip where he says, I don't want to lead these people astray. Now, if you take that as it's said, and I mean, to me, the intent then is meaning that he'll stop telling people that he's God. Because he says, if you prove that there's somebody greater than me, well, that unravels everything he's been doing.
Yeah.
So based on that, he can't possibly keep going. He would have to stop it immediately, and I would imagine become an evangelist for God and say, no, God revealed himself to me. I was wrong. He's there. I don't know. The movie doesn't tell you. So there's no way to know. The very last image of the movie is you see the communal wafer with the holes, and it's cracked in half, but it's whole. It's together. You know what I mean? It's not in pieces. Yeah. You see the pin, and then you see his arms and his hands kind of reaching up. And that's the last image of the film. So I don't know what you infer from that, but to me, it's like he's reaching and has talked to God again, I guess. But if you're asking me what I think that means he renounces the whole thing. His next thing is to go out and tell his followers I was wrong. I was wrong about it. I was incorrect. God exists.
Would it be interesting if there was a sequel that didn't believe him?
Well, you would have to think that some people, honestly, I could see them killing him on the spot.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. Where he is struck, he is struck down.
Yeah.
And then becomes a god, in the mind of his followers, nonetheless.
He's a martyr then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I don't know. There is no indication of what happens after that. Like I said, he comes in the room. There's the room becomes color. He yells God's name. He kind of collapses on the bed, and then it just goes white. And then we go to the credits. And like I said, the last image you see is the wafer, while damaged, is still not in pieces anymore, and his arm's kind of reaching up. So I don't know. You got to fill that part in yourself. But to me, he then just renounces all of it and basically says I was wrong. Which, how they would receive that is a very valid question. I don't know. But anyway, like I said, unfortunately, it is hard to find it. I don't think anybody but Criterion has it. Let me double check, but I didn't see anything that indicated that you can watch it anywhere but there. Oh no, okay, apparently you can rent it on Amazon for $1. Well, it's definitely worth renting for $1. I did not realize, I didn't see that little link there, but it does. Now let's double check, because sometimes, there it is. Yeah, standard definition. Yeah, it's not in high def. But yes, you can rent it for $1. It is there. I mean, it's got 4.5 stars out of 55 reviews. So, yeah. Oh, they describe it as art house drama. Okay. Art house only because it's cheap, because it's not any money. But, So that's it. That's all I got. It's one to chew on for the right audience.
Hey, it's all good.
Yeah. And I guess we didn't really recommend anything else, did we? So yeah, for $1.
Well, no, I can make some recommendations.
Go ahead, make a recommendation.
Don't put weaponry on robots.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. If you
that's my recommendation. Avoid machine learning, robots, and weaponry.
Yeah, if you have any pull in the armed, autonomous robot spaces, if you are a person of influence within that sphere or spheres, then we certainly recommend that you don't arm those things. Yes, I agree.
And I would I'd be less annoyed if it was just remote control. If they were still an asshole, like Xboxing it behind the shadows, I'd be fine with it.
That's what they're kind of saying. I based on what you were saying, I guess, does it send a command back saying, "Can I fire, sir?" And you have to say yes.
Yeah, essentially. But you're kind of sitting there going, "Well, make sure you check the camera, man."
Well, that's what I was going to say. Is are they really going to be paying attention?
How does that work?
Yeah, I don't.
Do you get a text?
Yeah. Kill people. Yes. Reply 1 for yes. Reply 2 for no.
Even better. Would you like to play a game?
Yeah. Would you like to play? What do you call it? Local urban warfare. 1 for yes, 2 for no. Yeah. Yeah. So yes, that is an easy recommendation. Easy recommendation. Don't arm autonomous robots. So that's a blanket one.
There you go. Yeah.
Outside of that,
don't do that this weekend.
Don't do that this weekend. As far as things you could spend $1 on, you could do far worse than The World's Greatest Sinner. It is a fascinating movie. And like I said, it's actually a good double feature with Dogma. Depending on how much comedy you want. Different
soundboard. Order. Do you have I'd buy that for $1?
I don't have a good version of that, so it's not in here. No,
that is one. Yeah, that is one you should have, because you find plenty of movies for $1.
Oh, you're right.
I'd buy that for $1.
That I will have that in place. I will have that in place for next time.
I shouldn't encourage you, is what I really shouldn't. But you know,
no, but you know what? That's
that seems like it fits.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. I really should have had that one. That makes me I can't believe I didn't think of that before now. Wow. What a complete failure that is. Yeah.
You think you were thinking of a lot of other stuff.
I was. That's true. I wanted to make sure I got your Stargate thing. So sorry if I destroyed. Well, it won't be. Lando's eardrums are destroyed, but in the edit, don't worry. I will make sure it stays under the level.
That was a wall of sound. Yeah.
It was a wall of sound. So yeah, another recommendation: try not to destroy your ears, whatever you do. So don't let morons play soundboard stuff at you too loud. So that's it, everybody. Enjoy your weekend. Don't arm robots. Don't destroy your hearing. And I'd rent that for $1. Yeah. Until next time. No, wait. What do I usually say? Oh, yeah. We'll talk to you all next week. There we go. Yeah. Great. Visit OzoneNightmare.com to subscribe to new episodes, browse through our back catalog, or to find links to support the show. Follow @Ozone Nightmare on Twitter for the latest episode postings and other show information. If 280 characters just isn't enough, you can always email us, theozonenightmare@gmail.com. The opening theme for the show is provided by Heartbeat Hero. The closing theme is provided by Ogre. Please visit and support these artists using the links in the show notes for each episode.